Hold your stinking horses there. It won't be long until this all makes sense. Take your fingers away from the keyboard, scroll back up and watch this gameplay. Don't look at the other comments just yet. I wanted to clear this up at the very beginning of the video. I'm not saying that Connor Bedard is not going to go first. He's going to go first. We all know he's going to go first. And the topic of this video, Matvei Mishkov, might not even go second or third or even fourth. But the reason we're talking about this player here today, as we had said, Matvei Mishkov, is because of what he's been doing in the KHL the past little while, and how, in some analytical models, it has been so good what he has accomplished this past little while that you can, in some respect, bring up the idea of him even being better than Bedard. It's not my word that's going to go out there and talk about it. It's the word of some NHL draft analyst models that go out there and talk about prospects, in particular using the PNHLE model. So, we're talking about Matvei Mishkov again. Last time we had talked about him, we talked about his slump, or not really slump. He's been pretty alright the past little while, but we talked about his downturn and how he's been dropping down draft rankings because of things that have been happening to him in the teams that he's played for. Not necessarily because he himself is a talentless player in any capacity. No, he's pretty talented. I think a lot of people could agree with that. It's just the contract situation, the Russia situation, the KHL, MHL, VHL situation. It's been a lot for scouts to go out there and process when it comes to evaluating this type of talent and deciding whether or not these setbacks are super important when considering where to draft this guy in the 2023 NHL entry draft. Now, the reason we're talking about Mishkov in this context is because the 18-year-old forward, whose consolidated ranking right now is at number 4, he's ranked 4 by a lot of outlets, 5 on others, some have him at number 3, and one even has him at number 2, is because Matvei Mishkov, in his recent KHL stint, has accomplished 20 points in 27 games played for HK Sochi, and a lot of this production came in a recent 5-point game, where this 18-year-old forward in the best hockey league in Russia scored a boatload of points, and he even had a Michigan goal. Yeah, that's right, Mishkov with the Michigan. He scores this in the same game where he gets the 5 points, and as a result, it boosts his KHL numbers all the way to the point where it is right now. If you want to ignore the SKA St. Petersburg stint, it looks a little bit better, but in totality, he's got 20 points in 30 KHL games played this season. Now, he's actually been loaned out to Kapitan Stupino in the MHL for a short while. He hasn't played a game yet that's registered on Elite Prospects, so we're just going to go off of what he's done in the KHL this past little while. But not only did Mishkov go out there and accomplish such a feat of getting 5 points in a game plus a Michigan goal, but his overall numbers of KHL production have topped off all draft-eligible seasons in KHL history, with a minimum of 20 games played. Take a look at this tweet by Cam Robinson. Evgeny Kuznetsov, when he was draft eligible, he had a .23 points per game in the KHL. Kaprizov had a .26. Panarin had a .45. Tarasenko a .57. And Matvei Mishkov has a .67. He is literally first on a list that includes 4 pretty good NHL players, if I do say so myself. And for Matvei Mishkov, he is ahead by a lot on all of them. Now, it is interesting to note, and something that you probably should note too, Pavel Malyugin goes out there and says this in the replies, important to note that Mishkov did this on a team that finished last in the league by 17 points, with 9 total wins. An 18-year-old kid put up those numbers on arguably the worst KHL team ever assembled. Cam Robinson replies saying opportunity helps, but yes, for sure. Now, the thing is, with Matvei Mishkov and his production, we've already established that this is arguably the best KHL season an NHL prospect has ever had. Draft-eligible season in the Russian League. You talk about Panarin, Tarasenko, Kuznetsov, Kaprizov, Mishkov has been better than all of them. But in fact, this production rate is so good that if you go over to Mason Black, NHL Rankings, PNHLE rankings, Matvei Mishkov has vaulted into first place with a 5-point effort in the last game of the year. The best draft year campaign ever posted in the KHL. Because of Mishkov's 20 points in 30 KHL games, his PNHLE ranking is now at 155, which overtakes Connor Bedard's ranking of 153. Now, they're both higher than Adam Fantilli, who has 120, Jiricek, Lane Hudson, Gabe Perreault, a few other guys who are drafted, some undrafted, of course, are listed here as well. But Connor Bedard has pretty much been the #1 guy on this list for the whole season, even dating back to last year. Connor Bedard still had a crazy good record that was good enough to boast him near the top. But Matvei Michkov exploding with the production that he has had has all of a sudden vaulted him to #1. Now, I know a lot of people might be going out there and saying, wait a minute, PNHLE, what is this? What does this really mean? Well, I wanted to explain just how this kind of works, because I think it's a little bit confusing at first. What this list does is it doesn't go out there and say, okay, Matvei Michkov had this amount of points in the KHL, therefore, if he's in his prime of the NHL, he's on pace for 155 points. That's not what PNHLE goes out there and says. Rather, the number that's associated with a ranking here, Matvei Michkov's 155, Bedard's 153, Fantilli's 120, this could be seen more so as a quote-unquote score. And it ranks players based off of historical data in the hockey leagues that these players play in, takes into account age, takes into account size and production, and it mathematically compiles all that data and formulates a score that you can attach to your prospects. Now, this is a comment that I made in the Canucks subreddit 4 years ago. I talked to NHL Ranking before about this entire thing, and this is sort of the rough gauge as to how things can go. PNHLE rating isn't necessarily a measure of their projected points, it's more of a scale. If I recall correctly, the way NHL Ranking has described it in the past goes as follows. 50 plus is a guaranteed NHLer, 60 plus is a middle 6 forward or a bottom 4 defenseman, 70 plus is a top 6 forward or a top 4D, and 80 plus is an elite first liner or first pairing player. Only a few guys have broken 100 in the past few years. Eichel did it, Matthews, McDavid, Pettersson, Lafreniere too. PNHLE is a ranking that takes points, league position, and age into account and ranks prospects according to how good they can potentially be in the NHL. This is why, if you look at the list, there are only 7 guys over 100 just in general. But with the sport of hockey just producing a lot more goals nowadays, you have guys like Matvei Michkov and Connor Bedard who have broken the scale and have broken the 150-point mark. For Bedard, it's easy to see why. The guy is producing at McDavid-like levels in the WHL, and Matvei Michkov just had the best KHL draft-eligible season ever. David Jiricek is dominating the AHL as a rookie defenseman at 18 years old, and Lane Hudson is doing incredible things in the NCAA too. Not to mention Adam Fantilli, who is over here, who is the leading point scorer in the entire NCAA as a draft-eligible player. These guys have broken the scale, but according to the mathematical formula, Matvei Michkov has done it a little bit more so than Bedard. This does not mean that Connor Bedard is not going to go first and Michkov will instead. It does not mean that the second overall team is going to get Connor Bedard. It just illustrates the magnitude of dominance that Matvei Michkov has had at the KHL level because, according to this mathematical model on PNHLE NHL Ranking, the magnitude as to how good Michkov's season has been supersedes that of the magnitude of how well Connor Bedard has been playing and how well he's been producing. So, does that make a little bit more sense? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to whether or not this entire thing really works for you internally, if it feels right, if you think there's a little bit more fine-tuning that should be done to this type of formula, or do you think this even really is something we should be paying attention to? Hey, Kevin Korchinski has a rating of 100. That's the same level of player as Jack Eichel and Pettersson and Lafreniere, but of course, you know, Korchinski's a defenseman, so you have to kind of rationalize your expectations there. Thoughts in the comment section below about this entire idea, Michkov's season being somewhat better than Connor Bedard's. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.